What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Geekiverse. We are talking about another great trailer that dropped this past week, Marvel's Doctor Strange. Boys, what do you think about it?
Fantastic.
Really good.
Awesome.
Really good.
All right. Jumping in there.
See, now we all talk at once.
I know. Like Suicide Squad, it was like cricket. But we loved it because no one wanted to step on toes.
Rabble, 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 rabble.
Doctor Strange, baby. Initial thoughts are we all like it. Visuals, it seems pretty almost like Inception.
Yeah. It's so bizarre. The cityscape, the cubes. It first starts off with 3 cities and it expands. It's just more cities in like this kind of weird shape that I can't even describe. It's like, what?
It reminded me of a kaleidoscope, especially the part where they're in like the dojo or whatever that was, and everything was like splitting off. It was so cool.
Every time you hear dojo, I think of Michael Scott. My dojo. But seriously, it is cinematically gorgeous from that brief snippet we saw. Honestly, I have very little background, if at all, anything in Doctor Strange. This intrigues me so much, and I don't know if it's just because it's automatic, being that it's a Marvel Cinematic Universe film, but man, this looks really appealing to me. Another reason maybe Benedict Cumberbatch. I really enjoy him in a lot of things he's been in. What do you think about him early on in this role?
I did not realize that was him talking in the trailer because he sounds so different.
I knew because of that really low voice.
I've never heard him do American before. Yeah,
it's
different. Did it well.
Yeah, I thought it was Baron Mordo the first time I watched it, but yeah.
I felt like he really captures, like, we saw a few brief scenes of it. He looks like someone who's very arrogant in the scenes where he's still, a surgeon, still in his prime. And then afterwards, when he's grown the beard, you assume he's probably been in his car accident where he lost the use of his hands for surgery, he looks just so desperate. And it's just brief glimpses, so maybe, I'm overlooking into this. But he really looks like he's going to capture that, and that's important with Doctor Strange. He's a guy who goes from being on top of the world, the main man in his game, surgery, and then he's just the bottom of the barrel, struggling to find a place.
Sorry.
I was just going to say it kind of reminds me of like Batman Begins. He's like...
I noticed that
a little bit.
Magic Batman.
A little bit.
Probably Magic Batman. Magic Batman.
It's one of the most underrated origin stories in comics. It's a fascinating...
Doctor Strange.
Yeah, Doctor Strange's origin story is one of the most underrated in comics. A lot of people don't know the character, but his background is a fascinating, very relatable story that, on top of the world, like he said, and then just at the bottom.
So we're seeing comparisons to that. Nick, you also mentioned a little bit of Tony Stark.
There's always been a kind of similarity between the two characters in the comics. They've even right now they're making jokes about how they're facial hair bros. They're also, they both had very privileged, very wealthy, very successful, and then something happens that changes their worldview or forces them to reevaluate their worldview. And the main difference has always been that Doctor Strange was a little more spiritual and had magic powers, whereas Tony Stark is completely relying on science and logic. So I'm also looking forward to hopefully seeing the two of them play off each other.
Yeah, well, didn't the Russo brothers tweet off a little glimpse of Doctor Strange being on Team Cap in Civil War, or was that real?
I haven't heard anything about that. As far as I'm aware, Civil War, we know all the characters that are in it.
They could have been messing with us.
You know what? I think they were. Russos.
Tweet us, Russos.
Damn it, Russos.
Right?
Yeah.
Nick, so this is being directed by Scott Derrickson.
Yeah. You guys all seen the movie Sinister by chance?
Yep.
No.
It is by far one of my favorite horror movies of the last decade. How do you feel about it? 'Cause
it was good. I wasn't crazy about it, but I mean, for the visual thrills, it's definitely one of the better horror movies of the last several years.
So he might be good to do something that seems a little darker like this.
Right.
Right?
a little bit of a horror movie aspect to it, Eldritch Abominations, things like that.
Handling the supernatural. I mean, this is going to be one of the few Marvel movies that delves into the supernatural and the mystical aspects of it.
Yeah, that's for sure. Jeff, also you mentioned pre-show Mads Mikkelsen.
That's right. We don't know exactly who he's playing. What we do know is he is some sorcerer who breaks off from Tilda Swinton's character, which is the Ancient One, the one that Doctor Strange is trying to learn from. I'm personally hoping that...
Constantine.
Yes. The White Witch from Chronicles of Narnia.
Yeah. She was in Geek Madness, by the way.
She was.
Did she make it to round 2?
She did. I don't know who
That
she
was
be
a
in the
shock
first
to
round,
me.
but she
Yeah.
did. Don't underestimate Narnia, buddy.
She might be in it next year.
Tilda Swinton.
Right, that's true. Yeah, that
That's what I'm
too.
saying. She might be in Geek Madness, 2017.
But I'm personally hoping that whoever Mads Mikkelsen plays, he has something to do with the big baddie of the Doctor Strange universe, which is Dormammu.
Yes.
Basically the Sauron of Marvel.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah. Otherworldly abomination.
Uh-huh.
Stanley actually said, I named him Dormammu because I wanted something that sounded cool and scary. And I was like, well, I wouldn't want to run into the dreaded Dormammu in a dark alley.
How about a Hoobie Wuddy? So Mads Mikkelsen, if you don't know, he's the star of Hannibal. One of the stars of Hannibal. Ironically, he's also in Rogue One, and no one has any idea who he's playing in that.
Right.
So maybe that's just like a thing in his
he's
contract.
keeping his roles under
His contract, it says no one knows who I'm playing until I show up on
He
the
goes,
screen.
Yeah.
listen, I'll be in this movie, but no one's going to know who I am until they actually see the movie. I don't want any trailer reaction. That's exactly how it went. So, final thoughts and wrapping this up. How do you think it ties into the overall MCU?
That's the thing, I don't know, because this is such a different concept. Like I said, this is the one that really dives into this mystical, the supernatural, the magic, and we haven't seen a lot of that so far from Marvel's cinematic productions.
I think that this is going to be game-changing for the cinematic universe. I've mentioned before that they look like they're trying to phase out some of the older heroes. And if you look at all the characters we've seen so far introduced, they're largely science-based superheroes. Even Thor was just, Asgardian magic is actually just advanced science. They drilled that into us, and now this is going to be a completely different element they're introducing, the idea of real magic, where you're violating laws of physics and just breaking all the rules that have been established.
So game changing.
Yeah, and I think that that's what we're going to see coming with a lot of the new heroes coming into play and to replace the old guard. We know Iron Fist is coming out, and that's got a mystical tie.
Yep.
There's a lot of mystical-based heroes in the Marvel Universe, and I would love to see some more of them on screen. So.
Me too. I'd love to, because I think overall, and we talked about it, we always harp that Marvel is the king of the screen when it comes to comic book movies. They do a really good job making all these movies feel unique, and this one totally has its own feel, at least from the trailer. I mean, as much as we can judge from that. But final thoughts, Seth?
Yeah, I think it definitely can be a game changer. I think that they really do need to start changing it up a little bit, because there does need to be, to avoid the genre getting stale. I think they really need to introduce some new things, and this does look fantastic. It does look different. The cast is solid. I love the visual look they're going for here. This sort of just distorted, falling. It's I don't know. I could almost like to see some kind of like German expressionism, like warped sets and like kind of things. Even though it'll be CG, it didn't look hokey. It didn't look CG. So I'm liking it.
You also see a lot of Asian influence on this. This is going to be very Eastern in its like background and the lore, what the settings are like, what the characters are like. Whereas primarily Marvel's movies have been Western in design and in their settings. This is going more, Far East for its inspiration.
And that only aids in making this feel like it's something new.
Exactly.
It's really creating a Marvel world instead of just, we've gotten a good feel of the United States and characters in there.
The Galaxy.
Yeah, the Guardians of the Galaxy.
True.
Now we're
My
actually
favorite Marvel film, by the way.
Mine too.
But now we're actually they didn't recently in the Avengers comics where they actually touched on the fact that there's superheroes worldwide. There are people all over the place that they've introduced over the years. And I think we're going to start to see that now because, like you said, Doctor Strange is definitely Eastern influence. Black Panther is coming from an African nation. We're going to start to see an Avengers world. So
I think they kind of introduced that when they brought Sokovia in for Age of Ultron.
True.
So, I mean, I think they're definitely starting to do it in a lot of their movies. But like you guys were saying, I'm really interested to see where they take it. Especially because, like Seth, I'm not really well-versed on any of... Yeah.
I got some suggested stuff.
Awesome.
I want to be
Suggested reading coming? All right, very good. So Nick's going to do it. Thank you. It's going to help the three of us.
Yeah.
So Nick does a suggested reading list. It's one of his segments that he writes somewhat regularly for the Geekiverse.com. He'll give you a whole bunch of literature to go and check out on a given superhero. It's really good stuff. So obviously, again, we're excited for it. Marvel's given us no reason not to be. But we want to know your thoughts, whether it's Derrickson, Mickelson, Benedict Cumberbatch. What's got you most amped up about this? Leave some comments below. Visit us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, iTunes, Mitomo. I know I'm missing something.
Tell Tilda Swinton to tweet us.
What's that?
Tell Tilda Swinton to tweet at us.
Please.
But
Tilda.
not turn us into stone. We don't want her to turn us into stone.
What they said. Just a normal, non-stone turning tweet. So, for the Geekiverse boys, I am Josiah. Thank you very much for watching.
Joker by his collar. Right off the bat, I mean, just the animation already looks gorgeous.
It is crisp.
Yeah, DC has really come far.
Like an apple. Like an apple.
Yes, like an apple.
Like a nice Macintosh.
DC has come
Like a nice Red's ale. Sponsor us.
I wish, yeah. DC has just come so far with their animation throughout their movies. When they started out, they were very Western. Like the characters were kind of blocky. Like you got the sense that the animators didn't really feel that these could be mature productions. Like